Have you ever stood at the edge of a relationship, looking back at years of shared history, and felt not love, not nostalgia, but a heavy, suffocating sense of exhaustion? It is a specific kind of pain, the silent realization that the people who once anchored you to the world are now the very weights dragging you beneath the surface. We are conditioned by society, by family, and by centuries of tradition to believe that longevity in a friendship is the ultimate proof of its value. We are told that loyalty means staying, that leaving is an act of betrayal, and that cutting off old ties is the behavior of someone who is cold, arrogant, or ungrateful. But what if that narrative is fundamentally wrong? What if the guilt you feel in your chest is not a moral failing, but a symptom of a psychological mismatch that has become too great to ignore? This video is not an instruction manual on how to be heartless. It is an exploration of why you feel like an impostor in your own social circle. We are going to dismantle the guilt surrounding the act of walking away. We will look at the science of identity, the hidden cost of emotional labor, and the biological necessity of shedding your old skin. If you feel like you are dragging dead weight into your future, listen closely. You are not a bad person for wanting to be free. You are simply evolving. To understand why we outgrow people, we must first understand the fluid nature of human identity itself. We often speak of finding ourselves as if the self is a static object hidden under a rock, waiting to be discovered and then kept in a museum case forever. But psychology and neuroscience tell us a different story. You are not a statue. You are a river. Every experience, every trauma, every book read, and every failure endured rewires your neural pathways and alters your fundamental perception of reality. The person you were at 16 or 25 or even last year is effectively dead. They exist only in memory. Yet old friendships are often built on the foundation of that dead version of you. They are contracts signed by a person who no longer exists. When you surround yourself with people who only recognize the old you, you are unconsciously forced to perform a role that no longer fits. You shrink yourself to fit into the box they are comfortable with. This is not malicious on their part. Human beings crave predictability. When you change, you threaten their model of the world. But for you, this creates a state of cognitive dissonance, a psychological friction where your external environment wars with your internal reality. Continuing to socialize in this state is not loyalty. It is a form of self-betrayal. You are trying to squeeze a complex, evolved consciousness into a shell that you shattered years ago, and the discomfort you feel is your psyche screaming for alignment. Consider the sheer amount of energy it takes to pretend. We rarely calculate this cost because it doesn't show up in our bank accounts, but it bankrupts our spirit. This is what psychologists call emotional labor. In the context of outgrown friendships, emotional labor is the act of suppressing your true thoughts, feigning interest in topics that no longer resonate, and apologizing for your evolution. It is the exhaustion you feel after a coffee date that leaves you drained rather than energized. You find yourself carefully editing your words because you know that sharing your new ambitions or new philosophical views will be met with confusion, cynicism, or subtle mockery. You become a performer in your own life, wearing a mask to keep the peace. And the tragedy is that the other person doesn't even know they are interacting with a mask. They think they are friends with you, but they are friends with a curated projection. This dynamic creates a profound loneliness that is actually worse than solitude. To be alone is to be with yourself. To be with people who don't see you is to be with no one. This emotional labor is a finite resource. Every ounce of energy you spend propping up a dead dynamic is energy you are stealing from your future, from your creative work, and from the potential relationships that would actually celebrate who you are today. The calculation is brutal but necessary. Is the comfort of nostalgia worth the cost of your vitality? There comes a breaking point where words fail. You may have tried to communicate your new boundaries. You may have tried to explain why you are changing, why you need more space, or why certain behaviors no longer fly with you. But if you have found yourself explaining your humanity to someone who is committed to misunderstanding you, you eventually retreat into silence. This is often labeled as ghosting or withdrawal by the rejected party, framed as an act of cowardice. But from a psychological perspective, this silence is often a final, desperate act of self-preservation. It is what happens when the bridge is burned not by you, but by the impossibility of connection. This silent withdrawal is not an act of aggression. It is an act of grief. You are grieving the potential of the friendship. You are grieving the shared memories. But you are also accepting the reality that language has limits. When two people are operating on fundamentally different frequencies of values and awareness, dialogue becomes a trap. You stop defending your choices because you realize they don't need a defense. They need execution. You stop correcting their false assumptions because you realize their opinion of you is none of your business. This silence is the sound of you taking your power back. It is the transition from seeking external validation to resting in internal certainty. It is not that you don't care. It is that you care about your sanity more. We are obsessed with the idea of closure. Hollywood and romantic literature have sold us the lie that every ending requires a dramatic confrontation, a final letter, or a tearful conversation where both parties reach a mutual understanding. We feel we owe people an explanation. In toxic or outgrown relationships, the explanation you want to give is often the very thing the other person is incapable of hearing. If they had the capacity to understand your reasons for leaving, you probably wouldn't be leaving in the first place. Trying to explain your growth to someone committed to stagnation is like trying to explain color to someone who only sees in black and white. It is not just futile, it is frustrating for both. It often leads to gaslighting, where your valid reasons are dismissed as you thinking you're better than everyone else. True closure is an internal job. It is the quiet acceptance that the season has passed. It is the realization that you can wish someone well, truly and deeply hope for their happiness, without needing to be the one who provides it. You do not need their permission to leave. You do not need them to agree with your reasons. The door to your new life does not require two keys. It only requires yours. Walking away without the final scene is a sign of emotional maturity. It acknowledges that nothing more productive can be said, and it spares both of you the indignity of a fight that no one can win. Ultimately, the decision to cut off old friends brings us to the core concept of a peaceful life: coherence. Psychological coherence is the state where your inner values, your outer actions, and your social environment are all singing the same song. When you live in coherence, life becomes easy. Friction disappears. You don't have to watch what you say because you are speaking the truth to people who understand that language. But when you hold on to outgrown relationships, you introduce chaos into your system. You are signaling to your subconscious that your past is more important than your present. You are telling yourself that you are willing to suffer to avoid being seen as the bad guy. This fragmentation causes anxiety, low-level depression, and a sense of being stuck. By cutting the cord, you are making a declaration of coherence. You are clearing the space, a vacuum that the universe abhors. It is terrifying to create that empty space, to sit in the solitude of the transition period. But it is only in that empty space that new, aligned connections can enter. You are trading the comfort of the known for the possibility of the true. This is the path of the individual. It is the path of the Stoic who values his own ruling center over the applause of the crowd. It is the path of the person who understands that we are born alone and we die alone. And in the interim, our primary responsibility is to the integrity of our own soul. So, if you are standing on that bridge today, Looking back at the people you can no longer take with you, do not look down in shame. Look forward. Understand that letting go is the most loving thing you can do. Loving for yourself, because you are free to grow, and loving for them, because you are releasing them from a connection that is no longer honest. You are simply returning them to their own path while you courageously step onto yours. It is not arrogance to want a life that fits you. It is not coldness to demand that your environment matches your evolution. It is simply the necessary mechanics of an authentic life. Travel light, shed the dead weight, and walk into your future with your head high. This is the secret to an easy life. If this message resonated with you, and if you are ready to stop apologizing for your growth, subscribe to the channel. We are building a community of people who choose reality over pretense. Thank you for watching, and until next time, choose yourself.